Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Conclave Podcast, where we are just 1 week away from the start of season 2. I don't know about you, but I sure am excited to get things started back up. It feels like forever since the break started just 2 months ago. Until then, I leave you with one last re-air, episode 4, where we discuss starting your spiritual journey and deity work. I give you the voices! Welcome to the Conclave. Hey, everybody, and welcome to The Conclave. This will be episode 4. We are talking The Voices, what to listen to when you're starting your spiritual path, and also discussing mythology and UPG, and Reconstructionism versus Neo-Paganism. So before we get into this, I just want to thank everybody for coming back. If you've been here before, if not, go back and listen to the last couple episodes. Personally, I think they're very informative. Hopefully everybody out there that's listening is finding that to be true also. Um, and remember, as you're watching these podcasts, if you come up with watching or listening to these podcasts, if you come up with any questions, any whatsoever, we will be doing an episode 13 answering of questions, where we're going to get together a whole bunch of our friends who are practitioners of different things, and you'll be able to get your answers answered in multiple ways and with different uh, faith structures to go along with. So do yourself a favor, write down those questions, and then email it into us. I'm going to give you the information at the end of this podcast. So, as the title says, this is one of the other ones that I think we deemed one of the more important episodes to do. And this is probably going to be the last one that is specifically for beginners.
Yeah.
Okay. But some of the things that we're going to talk about, it's going to be helpful for those who have already been doing this for a little bit and maybe aren't getting the best results from it. Okay. Because deity work is very, very important. It's very time consuming and it's very rewarding as long as it's done correctly. Okay. So, the first question I like to tell people, do you have to? Do you have to work with deities? Do you have to be on the pagan path?
And the answer is absolutely not.
No.
You can be an atheist, you can be agnostic, what have you. Deity work is not necessary. This is just some tips on how to go about it if it's something you do want to do or are called to do.
Yep. Now, and there are, Jess just mentioned, there's atheist witches, there's agnostic witches, there's Christian witches, right? What especially what we consider modern day witchcraft can fall into any religion. Now, I wouldn't go to your local Catholic church or Baptist, Methodist, whatever uh, flavor of Christianity you are. I wouldn't jump in there and start telling them that you're practicing witchcraft. It's not going to go over well. There's still the stigma within the Abrahamic faith that this is devil worship.
Mm-hmm.
I assure you, it's not. It's really not. Even the modern Church of Satan. And I keep saying modern because these things have changed over time. So we got to look at it as how things are going now. Even the modern Church of Satan, it's a non-theistic practice,
Yeah.
right? Which means it's atheist.
Yeah.
They don't believe in a god. Uh,
Or at least in worshiping one.
yeah, and then it's mostly now done. If all of my research and everything has been correct, it's mostly done to just kind of poke the bear of the establishment.
Yeah.
So that answers the question of, do you have to? Now, what if a specific god calls to you? Do you have to answer?
Absolutely not.
It's all about free will, people. You have your choices, you have your decisions.
Consent is important in every relationship, and that includes the relationship you have with the divine.
Yeah. So, who or what are the gods? Now, on this one, I think everybody has a rough, decent grasp of who the Christian God is. But when we're talking about the pagan gods, who or what are
So, the way I look at it, and this is pretty, this is based on some evidence from some of the books I've read and things like that, as far as what pagan beliefs, especially like in the Norse paganry, kind of believe. So there's an agnostic element to it where there is the like the soul source that is like the divine power of the universe, what people will, that power that creates, that, gives everything soul and everything its uniqueness and individual power kind of all trickles from that source. And kind of like, so it goes, you got your source and you have like your angels, your demons, your gods, your guides, your ancestors, your divine beings, your otherworldly beings, your humans, your rocks, your trees, all are funneled down from that initial source. And for me, the gods are just a little bit closer to the source than we are. So they have more understanding, they have more purpose, but they're still different. So just like you and I are human. So we're on that same level of like nearness to the source. Uh, we're different. You do different things, you have different experiences, you have different specialties, you have different hobbies, you have different likes, dislikes, what have you. The gods are the same in that aspect. They are unique individuals, they are different. Even if you find some have similarities, like, okay, we have multiple thunder gods. Well, there's a lot of people who crochet.
Okay, so you're talking not just God to God with pantheon, but then you're talking pantheon to pantheon.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Because so the important thing to grasp there, guys, is there are almost as many pantheons as there are cultures and countries out there. Okay. Everybody kind of started somewhere. Everybody has their their worship. Everybody has their gods that they relied on and were helped by and worshipped. And like Jess is saying, just because they have similar attributes doesn't mean one god is equated to another.
For example, Thor and Zeus, not the same god. Similar. They have many similar aspects. They have served many similar functions. Doesn't mean they're the same guy. It just means both societies developed a need for that particular type of archetype.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So okay, so we are looking at these beings, and now, and I will say the concept of the soul source, as I understand it, this is something that has been developed recently. And when I say recently, I mean within the last couple hundred years. I want to say it was probably during the spiritualist movements of the mid to late 1800s that they started kind of bringing that. Now, I may be wrong. The Norse path may have thought of this and come to this much sooner.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the books I write specifically mentions this as part of a generalized belief of the continent at the time.
Oh wow. Okay. So yeah, that's where you see people of different, even pagan faiths, reading and knowing and understanding things at different levels. Because like I said, everything I've read, that whole collective idea and that thought process really came into more you know, the the modern times. Along with that one was that, and maybe this is where some of it differs. Um, it was understood and believed that as you go through life and as you go through your lives, you are working towards elevating yourself throughout these structures in an attempt to obtain your own divinity.
Is this when you talk about how when you die, you want to trick
Just
people?
don't give away my secrets, okay? Because if they all know about it, it's not going to work.
That's fair.
Okay, so since there's probably only about three of you listening to these right now, and hopefully that increases. Hopefully not to the point where it ruins my death plan. There are, as you'll see going through, and we'll mention it again later in this episode. There are trickster entities out there, right? And this can be uh, just regular people spirits, ghosts. This can be guides who are trying to push you into nefarious directions because it's all part of a test. This could be trickster gods. I mean, Loki. But my version of being a trickster is to try to convince y'all that I'm actually one of the gods, thus getting offerings, worship, and essentially allowing you all to create me into a god.
Yeah.
Because, this is a whole long process. Let's skip a few ranks. This is
You
the
just got
divine.
yourself taken off the ancestor
This is
altar.
this is divine cheat code right here. Okay. And when our friend Arlene listens to this one, she's probably going to go ahead and take me off of her ancestral altar. I've already told her, even though I am younger, chances are I'm probably going first. I've seen what she makes for her ancestors on the altar. I've demanded a place a place at the table. So this might get me taken off, maybe. Um, okay, so we've now mentioned, tricksters. I think what I was trying to say there, and the point I was trying to make before we moved on, um, the gods are bigger than us,
Yeah.
and I don't mean physically, because physically they can be
Whatever size they want.
whatever they want to be.
They're all shapeshifters, guys. Don't just think just because trickster spirits or what have you have a reputation for being shapeshifters doesn't mean all of them aren't. They all shapeshift.
Yeah, yeah. But what I mean by that is they are vastly more intelligent.
They have a wider
They have a
understanding.
wider understanding. They have more power. They are above us. They're better than us. Okay, let's just be 100% frank and honest. That's why they're gods and we are people. Okay, um, and this is going to take us now into the next question of who or what are the gods not, right? So since we're already kind of on the topic of they're not our friends, they're not our romantic partners, and it's not that they won't have favor towards us. It's not that there aren't some people out there who have um, sexual
Romantic
encounters
liaisons.
with the gods. That is something that is historically documented from the beginning all the way through to even now. Um, but at the end of the day, they're not humans. They don't have emotions in the ways that we do.
They
They do
don't
not have attachments in the way that we do. We might, and you might end up being your god or goddess's favorite, but you're still just their favorite plaything because
they
they're
don't exercise on
vastly
the
above
same
us.
morality
Yeah,
level that humans do because they don't need to.
yeah.
They're worried about different things than we are. Uh,
I mean, you go back to like the old school. You think you're better than me? They are. Let's just face that, 100%. They are. They are better than us. They are beyond us. Um, so that's kind of that first thing of what they are not. Okay. What also they are not.
is let's de-Christianize your thinking a little bit. They're not fallen angels. They're not demons. They're not characters off the Bible or the Torah.
Or the
They're
Quran or any of those.
they are their own thing.
These gods predate the Abrahamic faiths by thousands of years. Okay. If they are now seen as having been written into these sources, now we're looking at the gods being handled in a political aspect.
Yes, they are being written into these sources in order to accommodate or appropriate or assimilate a group of people.
When you go in and you invade an area and you take over a people, there are two key things you have to do to subjugate. Well, let's not say subjugate because that's going to make it sound like they're all being enslaved. There's two key things you have to do to gain their loyalty. And the first is you take away their government and you implement your own, and then you take away their religion and you implement their own. This was done wonderfully by the Romans.
Hmm.
And we're talking even pre-Christianization,
Because
right?
they didn't even really take the religions away, especially not initially.
No.
They just were like, oh, okay, you've got this, temple to Lu. We're gonna slap one to Hermes right next to it. They get along just right.
Yeah.
Like, or Mercury rather.
And it wasn't necessarily just doing it like, okay, these gods get along, we're going to do that. When they would take it back to their leaders and to their people, and they talked about the indigenous religions that they're encountering, they didn't keep the names of the other people's gods. They used the names of their god that resembled them the most. So it could very well be like, okay, let's say Dagda. He's one of the main god kings of the Tuatha Danann in Ireland. He has the moniker of the Good Father, right? Now that implies that at least for a chunk of time he was in charge of the pantheon. Okay, so he's Jupiter.
Oh,
So that's the best way they had to describe it. Rather than going into what he is or isn't, he's Jupiter. Okay, awesome. Now we know who he is and what he is to the people, kind of a deal. So that is also the beginning of where you start seeing um, these mashups of this god is that god is that god is this god, which back then it mainly stuck with in the Romans. Nowadays, as we go into neo-paganism, you see that become more of a acceptable way of looking at things and doing
but
things.
it's all, in my opinion, a product of colonization.
100%, 100%. So decolonizing your practice is a huge thing.
And it doesn't mean just decolonizing from colonizer mentality, meaning like white European in the Americas or things like that. It means literally understanding that thousands of years ago, these were all indigenous, that they all had their own faith structure and they only became larger and they conglomerated as other people came in and took them over.
Exactly.
Prime example of that would be Thor and Odin swapping places. For the longest time in Scandinavia, Thor was considered the predominant, like, overseeing god.
Emma.
Uh, but at some point, somebody, a noble family, took power, and they had always claimed that they were descended from Odin. So now we see the mundane people claiming that they're from Odin coming into power. So now Odin supersedes Thor.
Please tell me that's the historical Ragnar.
It actually predates Ragnar.
Ah, because
But
I remember because I know that.
yeah,
Listen, Vikings is a great show. It is historical fiction, but it is based off of actual people. So,
but yeah,
and I know
there's a
they
lot of
claim that
people,
Ragnar's family had been descendants of Odin.
and that's part of where they pulled that from.
Okay, that's cool.
So that's why when you're looking at equivalencies, you'll see Thor is equated to Jupiter,
Okay,
and Odin is equated to Mercury,
interesting. I guess I can see
the
that because
Wanderer.
yeah, I was going to say you look at his aspect of him
He's a
wandering around
traveler,
and
and
testing.
he's also responsible for transition into the underworld to Valhalla.
True.
So they share that death aspect.
Is Valhalla technically the underworld, or
No,
would we
I
just
mean
be
it's
looking at
the
different? Okay,
afterlife
okay,
and afterlife too, because it's not the only one.
fair. That's fair. Um, okay, so that's a little bit of who the gods aren't. And I think next we're going to be getting into the idea of uh, Reconstructionist and neo paganism. So before we dive fully into that, we should really look at the definition of paganism, right? So uh, what makes a religion or a person a pagan? When you look at it as more of the most modern and the current definition, pagan is just that umbrella term for polytheistic religions, uh, with most of them having a nature aspect to it.
Yeah, so that's kind of what everybody modern time kind of
Yeah.
agrees is the definition at this point.
And by nature aspect, I think it kind of goes more along the lines of the understanding that everything has a spirit or soul or an energy or whatever it is you want to call it. And I'm blanking right now.
Animist.
Animus, thank you. It is an anime. They are animist practices
Yes.
and beliefs. So everything that is out there, including man-made things, your computer, the microphones that are picking up our talking, uh,
I mean, your
your
computer for sure,
glasses,
it's quartz. Like your chips have quartz in them.
everything has energy. Everything has a spirit. And it's not talking like they don't have a soul to the same way that we do, right? To the rock, we may be the same as what the gods are to us. Again, there's levels and there's hierarchies. Right?
You might have a favorite rock.
Yeah,
That's a nice boulder.
I,
I like that boulder.
actually, a lot of people in the metaphysical world have favorite rocks.
I have a lot of them.
A lot of favorite rocks. So there we have it. There is now that equation. We're doubling back to where we were with what the gods are not.
Yeah,
I mean,
it trickles down.
you're not married and having a wonderful time with your favorite rock. There are some crystals that are formed to have playtime, but again, that kind of doubles back to the equation of you may have fun time with your gods. Doesn't necessarily mean that you are now in a kitchen table poly relationship with your gods. Okay. The root word to pagan is the Latin word of pagus, and it literally translated to those that live in this country or those that live in the country. Sorry. And this was a term adopted by early Christians and Catholics
Hillbillies.
to talk about the Romans. And from there, it evolves and it grows. Um, Other definitions and other ways to look at it is that it is any religion outside of the Abrahamic faiths, the Abrahamic faiths being Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Um, there are some people that consider Buddhism and Hinduism outside of paganism because of how large and how accepted they are.
I think also Hinduism kind of predating most of the large organized religions in the world in modern day also has something to play in that.
Yeah.
Um, Also, the fact that a lot of our um, origins actually come from the Indian subcontinent. So it's called Proto-Indo-European uh, migration patterns that have caused. That's why, again, why we might see so much synchronicity because as we traveled from the cradle of life into Southern Asia and then back across the Urals and back into Europe, we brought a lot of these concepts and traditions with us.
Yeah.
And that concept of the soul source, like that source, uh, or that like it's Rama, I believe, in Hinduism. Like that same concept, like everything is an aspect
Yeah.
of that one.
So fun, interesting fact. We're going to throw this in here. I did a class not long ago on actually everything's starting to become longer ago. It's just like time flies.
Yeah.
The number of classes we've done and things have increased on the origins of religion. And if I'm remembering correctly, somebody correct me if I am wrong. Hinduism is credited as the longest running religion. It's not the oldest. That still is under argument of which one actually hits the oldest. Um,
But it's the
but it's the
longest.
longest continuously practiced,
Yeah.
even though its origins are so vastly different from what it is today that you probably wouldn't even recognize them as the same religion. It's still the longest running religion out there, which is interesting. And here in the States, our second lady is Hindu,
Hmm.
which I think is absolutely cool. I personally tend to go by the first definition of paganism we gave you, which would include Hinduism in there. So
It
our
simplifies
our
things.
second lady, for the first time in that high up in the government ranks, we have somebody who is not of the Abrahamic faith.
Hmm.
I think that's really, really freaking cool. politics aside, this is all politics. We're not going to ever get into politics on this channel, right? That's all completely aside. We're looking specifically at the spiritual side of things. I think it's really neat. Anyway, so we're getting off track on that. There are a couple other things that are considered loosely pagan and not necessarily pagan. Native American religions, Shinto, uh, the Orisha,
A lot of the
and
ATRs.
Voodoo. So, like the ATRs, Asian religions, the indigenous North American, and well, I guess not
This
even
is the
necessarily North,
indigenous
the
American.
indigenous American and Western Hemisphere religions. So, essentially, when you look at it, if you use those definitions, you're looking at paganism being European polytheism.
Yeah,
And I think this is why, as time has evolved, the definition for it has kind of become that umbrella of nope, it's polytheistic, typically animalistic and animistic religions.
I think it's more inclusive that way.
Very much so. And
I think not including things like Shinto, the ATRs, and the Native Americans into that umbrella term kind of almost, well, I mean, they're not like, it almost feels like, well, they're not like us. It feels a little exclusive. And I don't know that that was necessarily intended, but um, I do believe that initially there was not enough understanding of what those practices entailed.
yeah,
So they were just like, not ours.
and at the same time, when the word was first coming about, they didn't really know of those countries,
Right.
right? So as the term then becomes universal and worldwide, it needs to expand to include
Yeah.
because otherwise, if someone's like, well, what is pagan then? Like, if you're being asked to defend what you believe or explain what you believe, do we really want to sit there like, well, so technically it's not it's religions that aren't Abrahamic, uh, or sometimes Buddhist or Hindu,
Right.
and sometimes not this and sometimes not that. It's just so much easier and more
To just
direct.
be like,
Be like,
it's polytheism.
it's polytheistic religions. Boom.
Like, it's just,
And I think for the most part, everybody, not everybody, I think for the most part, a lot of people will agree with the modern umbrella term of pagan is polytheistic religions. So I want to bring in a little bit of a debate because I don't think I've ever asked you your opinion on this, and I find it interesting. Okay. So when we look at that, so paganism being polytheistic, if I was still Catholic, but believe in and even work with some of the other gods, am I pagan?
yes.
Can Christians be pagans?
If you're practicing polytheism, you are pagan.
Now, what if they're not practicing it? What if they just still acknowledge the existence of the old gods?
Well, Christianity already does that. It's in the Ten Commandments and it's in the Old Testament. So, acknowledging the existence is not the same as worship. And it's not the same as having a religion. Therefore, you're not pagan. You're just acknowledging the existence of other gods.
I'm glad you brought up the commandments. It's a
I'm
fun
just trying to
little
start
segue.
fights.
No, 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 no. I think this is a fun segue because we have a friend right now who's using the same circular logic that we used when we first got into to working with deity. And of course, much like the Twizzler straw, where you bite both ends of the Twizzler and can use it as a straw, I thought we had invented this.
No.
And then you hear other people use the same logic, you're like, damn, I'm not a trailblazer. Yeah, it's the same thing as, first time you go to the cafeteria in school and somebody else is using a Twizzler as a straw. You're like, oh, how did they know? Because everybody does it.
I bet you think you invented putting all the sodas in one cup too, don't you?
I didn't. I don't know if I can go on right now. This is too much. No, I don't think that. I saw somebody else do it, man. I knew you could.
Wait, that's a
But it
lot.
wasn't sodas, it was snow cones.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah. Um, so when you look at, there's been a number of people who, as they're transitioning from one faith structure to a next, it's difficult to give up sometimes what you have always known, especially for people like me, I didn't have necessarily a falling out with the Catholic Church. I was very fortunate growing up. The church I grew up in, they didn't preach hate. They didn't preach judgment. I never heard a single sermon telling me that we
Anybody
should hate homosexuality and they're all going to burn in hell. I never heard a single sermon of because they got a divorce, they're going to hell. Now, it was unfortunately you can't receive communion because those are the rules of the church, but it never went beyond that, right? I never heard these things that so many Catholics that I've talked to after leaving my little hometown, apparently it's very common. So I never had that. I never had the big falling out.
and we've seen more evidence of it as we've
As we've
been
grown
here.
older and we've been here in Pittsburgh, and I mean, our daughters are still being raised in the Catholic Church because I want them to see the pagan side and I want them to see that side so that they have all the information they can to make their decisions of what they want to be and who they want to be.
It also keeps the grandparents happy.
And it keeps the grandparents happy. Um, I've seen a lot of the hatred that people tell of the Catholic Church in the church that we were originally congregants of. We've had to switch churches because of it because I refuse to let the girls hear the hatred. We won't get any deeper into it.
Yeah.
I can go off on a tangent on this one. Um, but so for me, it wasn't a religious trauma, and I'm tearing myself away from it. It was a gradual thing. It was the these gods are answering my calls. They're giving me and they're giving me answers. They're giving me assistance. They are
It was
giving me
more of
the
a
tools
natural
to get
progression.
through. You know, if I'm making phone calls and nobody's answering, and I call my other neighbor and they answer, I'm going to stop calling neighbor one. And that's kind of the way it went for me. But it was very difficult, and especially when we started incorporating deity to it. And we came up with the realization the first commandment: I'm your Lord your God, you shall know other gods before me. So then we have this loophole. Well, what if I just don't put these other gods before him? As long as he remains my main guy, we can still work with the other gods.
But then again, wasn't picking up the phone, so.
Still wasn't picking up the phone. And that's when that line of communication was severed completely. But then I think a lot of people fall into that same thought process. And for those of you out there that hear this, that are brand new into it and are struggling with that switch, dude, use that logic for a while until you know 100% which direction you're going to go with it and what you really like. So,
And remember, relationships are a two-way street. That includes, again, divine relationships. You should be giving as well as receiving something.
yeah. Okay, so before we go any further into the uh, the syllabus here, there are two necessary terms that are needed for when we move forward and define uh, the more philosophies of paganism, right? So the first one is UPG. Jess, you want to go over? I'll say the initials. You give the definitions.
So, UPG is unverified personal gnosis. So it's um, your personal experiences and things that you have um, established as part of your practice that you have been getting results from, but you have no maybe necessarily lore or mythology to back it up. So, for example, it would be the same as me going like, well, when I give Idun tea instead of coffee, she seems more pleased with that offering, so I will start giving her tea more often. Um, but there's nothing to say that she doesn't like coffee or she wouldn't prefer a strong drink. Uh, just that, okay, she likes X more than Y, so I'm going to do Y or X more often. That's unverified. It's a personal experience. It's something that I am discerning through whatever signs I'm getting from doing the action, but there's no lore to back it up.
That's fair.
The next
So then
one.
the next one would be SPG.
All right, so this is shared personal gnosis. So this is something a larger community agrees upon. Things that would include would be something like, oh, Loki seems to really like cinnamon. There's Again, no lore about Loki and Cinnamon, but here we all are giving Loki Fireball. Um, there's the Loki being associated with glasses. Again, no lore that he ever even shapeshifts into one. But here we are, like widely accepting that yeah, foxes and Loki track. I also personally think he like my UPG raccoons.
So you and raccoons, man.
But they weren't indigenous to Scandinavia, so they
No,
wouldn't
that's
have
true.
known raccoons.
Yeah, another example would be on Morrigan, the Morrigan with Blue Jays.
Hmm.
Right. Blue Jays aren't in Ireland, so historically, mythologically, lore based, no. However, there's a lot of practitioners here in North America that associate and are connected them to her. Part of it's going to be their corvids as well as crows, so there's a connection in that. But they connect a lot deeper with the Blue Jays. So there's a lot of stuff like that, and it can be physical world stuff.
Hmm.
Like for example, it took me a while when making tea for On Morrigan to get the ratio of honey to milk. And when I got it wrong, I would go in and to remove the offering the next day, and it would be moldy, which doesn't necessarily seem like it would be that weird because, milk and cream are going to curdle and turn. However, the ones that it was turning the fastest was when there was more honey and less cream. The honey is going to keep it from having that happen as fast,
Hmm.
right? But these things can also be uh, messages in dreams or during meditations. So it doesn't have to be. It can be the spiritual world or it can be the physical world. Right. The whole purpose to the thought process is you can't verify specifically that this is 100% that God.
Right.
Now we define those because the next two things that we're going to be defining includes the usage of UPG. Okay. So the first one is, well, we have the two philosophies of paganism essentially, and one is called Reconstructionism. The other is neo-paganism. Reconstructionism is it's a heavy reliance on the mythology, the lore, written history, and all of those kind of good things.
And a belief that anything not written in the lore has no business in your practice.
So yes and no. UPG does play a role in it. It's
Because
just
it's more about
very,
your
very minor
relationship.
because it talks about your personal relationship with them. So that's where you look at stuff like if you see a fox or a blue jay or an offering seems to be accepted faster or slower, those kind of things. That's where UPG really plays into neo or into Reconstructionism. The Reconstruction, and it's called that because they're the people in that thought process are trying to reconstruct the old ways of practice, and it's not all that easy because most of or a lot of these religions
Have no written
have
lore.
no written lore. It wasn't written down for the longest time, and it actually wasn't until Catholic monks started doing it in about the 1300s. So that's why you're going to see a lot of the stories and everything that are very heavily Christianized. Uh, but that's also why it's important that we have to look at decolonizing and taking it out. Um, but UPG is there, just not so much as they try to rebuild the old ways. Uh, it is important to understand, especially in this one, that your UPG does not change the deity's personality, their behavior, their history and lore. If UPG goes against the god's known characteristics,
And I feel like this is important no matter how you practice,
yes,
whether you're neo pagan, whether you're trying to reconstruct, if it goes against what we know, what we have written of an entity.
then there's a chance you're dealing with a trickster spirit
Yeah.
and not with that god. But we're going to come back to this here in a second, or at least re-emphasize it. So then we have neo-paganism. So neo-paganism is a contemporary and modern form of paganism. It is built off of a collection of pagan practices. This is where we say the gods kind of get meshed together and equated to each other. Uh, individual practitioners rely very heavily on their UPG and the SPG instead of the lore. That's a personal assessment. I don't ever see that in definitions of neo-paganism, but of the neo-pagans that I know personally, and this equates to pretty much all of them, it is very heavy on the UPG, and that's fine.
It's what
That's
works
what
for
they
them.
believe, and that's what
And if
works
it's
for them.
what's connecting them, at the end of the day, the goal is to connect to that source.
Yeah.
So if that's what's getting them there, fine.
Now, and I will say a lot. I say a lot of them, and a lot of them also taking the fact of if they get corrected with actually, if you look at the history of this god, that's 100% against what they would have done. They will sit there and rediscern their
Make sure they know
relationship
who
and
they're
make sure they're
talking to.
talking to. Like they go back and they do the work. Some don't. If they don't, that's a huge red flag. Um, but they still take the lore into consideration. It's just they're secondary. So you kind of flop the two sides, one where lore is the most important, opposed to UPG and vice versa.
Personally, I think um, with us being modern people, a balance is necessary.
Yes.
Uh, because obviously, I'm not going to be able to worship the way a fight like a Norwegian woman in 150 AD would do it. Like it's just not. I don't.
I will never be able to worship like
I'm not going out
somebody in
slaughtering goats,
2000.
y'all.
Um, but going back into that red flag for just a little bit, um, you know, this touches in. Actually, no, we're going to touch right into it when we're talking about when the God calls. Um, however, so I do say that when you're looking into a neo-pagan way of practicing, you want to make sure before you incorporate any of the gods, even if it is taken in that more of a collective stance.
Like almost agnostic stance.
Yeah, make sure you're looking into the cultures a little bit and the gods themselves, and just guarantee that you're not appropriating somebody else's religion and culture. And a perfect example of this, and I know of at least one or two people that we're friends with that are probably gonna get pissed off about this one, but Kali. Kali is the perfect example because Kali is a god she's a goddess in Hinduism. She is one that has been very not wildly, sorry, widely brought into neo-pagan practices.
Because she's so striking. I mean, I don't blame them for being drawn
Yeah,
because
the female empowerment aspect to her alone is understandable on why a lot of people want to bring it into their day-to-day practice. However, according to a Hindu practitioner, Kali is closed even within Hinduism.
yeah, like the direct cult of Kali is its own thing.
It is essentially a religion inside of a religion, and you have to be initiated into that religion before practice is allowed. So, by using Kali, you are hopefully unknowingly, but you are being disrespectful. The same thing with those of us in the mayonnaise mafia. Mayo mafia, why are you working with Orishas?
Yeah.
Why are you working with the Loa? Do you have permission by them or by African practitioners?
Have you been initiated by a house?
There,
Like,
yeah, cool. You can associate to the basis of one of these deities, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're allowed to or that you should be, right? And again, when we don't look into that little bit there and we just snatch it, you're calling it
you're colonizing
you're a
somebody else's
colonizer at
practice.
that point. So, and I'm not trying to gatekeep. Please don't think that. Do your research. If it falls into the line, awesome. If you are in communication with that God and they're specifically like, no, this is okay, please, by all means. But make sure you're doing that. Make sure that you have the receipts before you just start going and taking everybody else's deities.
And, maybe find people who are initiated into these particular entities and their practices and talk with them and see it from their point of view. Especially initiation based practices. If it's going to require something in the form of an initiation, to do more than like I'm not talking about becoming like a priest or something. I'm talking about just to start devoting with them. It's going to take an initiation. You need to talk to somebody who's initiated, and I don't
Yeah,
care if that makes you mad. You need to talk to somebody who's
yeah.
initiated and get their take because they know what's up.
That is the best way to do it. And this is not going to just be um, a racial thing. It's not just outside of that. It's speak to any indigenous person of that culture,
Hmm.
right? And that can mean an Irish person. And I don't mean American Irish. I mean from Ireland. It could be talking to a Dane. It could mean talking to a member of the Lakota Nation.
Hmm.
Talk to the people of the culture of the gods that you're going to be trying to call on. And this goes for Reconstructionists. This goes for neo pagans. This is just general good upkeep for everybody.
It's manners, y'all.
Yeah,
Like,
let's
have
have
some
some.
manners.
Let's have some.
You don't get to go walk into everybody's house and do whatever you want there. Have some manners.
So before we go, and there are a couple of key groups inside of neo paganism that a lot of people I think are drawn to, at least in the initial. The less popular one of the two that I know of and think of immediately is the Order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids. There's a group that I was a practicing member of for a little bit, in an attempt to learn Druidism until I realized that, their core belief structures and mine don't mesh together. If you guys haven't put it together yet, I'm a Reconstructionist. They were equating like Lou from Ireland as Loki. It's like
No, 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 no.
y'all haven't read a
Like
single
I've
bit of
met
Lord of
that
the Flies.
homie. It's not the same.
No, yeah, I have interacted with both. They are nowhere near, right?
No.
Um, so I've stepped away from them, which is perfectly fine because our practice grows as we learn and as we grow. The other one is Wicca, right? Wicca is a modern religion which started in 1950s, I believe. I should know that.
Somewhere,
I've got a
somewhere.
class on the wheel year that encompassed the beginning of the Wiccan religion, but it is an organized religion inside of the pagan umbrella, and more specifically inside the neo-pagan umbrella. And I think this is a lot of people dip their toes into it at least for a little bit of time because a lot of us come from a structured religious background,
Yeah, most people have opened a
and
Cunningham book or a
yeah,
Buckland, and
and this gives them a structured religious background to step into. So it's a not everybody who starts out in the Wiccan faith stays there, and I think for those people, it's just kind of that growth and that transition point that they need, which is fantastic.
it in its defense, like it gives structure where people who are leaving structured, organized
Yep,
religions, they
yep,
kind of need that stepping off point sometimes to give them a direction in where to start.
yep. And no defense is needed. In all honesty, do I roll my eyes at some of the things they say and they do? Yep. Do they roll their eyes at some of the things I say and do? Yup. And I think that's healthy. That's normal. That's okay. Am I ever going to actually run them down of like, they suck? No, not at all. Because at the end of the day, we're all we're all just trying to
We're all
figure
just
things
trying to,
out.
personally, as long as like everything you're doing is trying to like make you do better, understand more, and not be a complete and utter dickhead, I'm good.
Yep, agreed. So, all right, before we go any further into everything, let's talk about our personal experiences and how we came to be where we are. Right. Because then after this, we're going to talk about, what happens when God start calling you. Right. So we've been there. This is how we've gotten there. I asked Jess who she wanted to go first on this one. She chose me because mine happened first. It happened before her.
Chronological order.
Yeah. Um, I'm the rarity in the fact that the first deity that appeared and kind of started showing themselves to me is the one that I will be staying with permanently.
I mean, both of us.
No, because you had some others that were Because Apollo and Athena and then were all
They
popular
were
at the same time.
after.
They were after. Okay, so my time on. So Jess is the same way. The difference is, I think, you cross pantheons with the others. I do not.
And not as much anymore.
Not as
Let's
much anymore. It was kind of a whoop, and then because it also took you a while to admit to the path
Yeah,
you
we'll
were.
get there.
We'll get there. Okay.
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I
Don't listen
kind
to
of
him
do. Oh,
about me.
don't please, please, woman.
He just wanted to feel special.
No, not at all. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm just saying it's not
I'm
common.
just teasing you. Just tell your story.
So I don't even remember necessarily how it started. We were in a bookstore and we were looking for a book on the Irish gods because it was one of those things of like, we brought up the thing of like, okay, well, everybody knows about the Greeks and therefore you kind of know about the Romans. There's others out there that you hear about a little bit. The Norse were already starting to get
I mean,
really
MCU was
popular
big,
because of
and
the MCU and my heritage. My dad's from Czechoslovakia. My mom's from Canada, but everybody on my mom's side of the family is Irish, right? There was no crossing streams. So I've always had the wonderful ability to say, I'm 50% Irish, 50% Czech. So I was like, you know what, let's see if we can't find a book on the gods of Ireland. And we did and started reading it. Looking back on it, the very first story in that book is should have been a huge red flag. I didn't know what to look for. And it talked about, I can't even remember which god they said it was, but they were talking about it being the main god of Ireland.
it
Which
was like
there's
somebody
no,
you can't even remember
yeah,
now.
felt the death of Jesus at the crucifixion and became so enraged, he started hacking at a tree with his sword and he died because of exertion and his heart exploded. Red flag. Right, this is what we're talking about. If it's overly Christianized, maybe we don't listen to it.
Let's put it this way: we can't find that book
We
anymore.
can't find it anywhere. But as I was reading through, I read a couple different gods and came to like the first main goddess they brought up, the Morrigan, on Morrigan. And one of my first thoughts was, I should get a tattoo for it. It could be really cool. It could be like a wolf's head with a crow in the background and an eel and this and that. And I instantly just started, and I read that section over and over and over, thinking instantly about tattooing myself for her. And then little other things started happening. Crows were everywhere. Anywhere we went, there was, we went to the Renaissance Fair and I was looking for, what's the pouch?
Sporin?
A sporin for with my kilt. And the first one I found was three crows. At the time, I was falling into the trap of the Morrigan being the triple gods.
Mm-hmm.
Everything just kind of kept pointing in that direction. So I spoke out for the first time, and I hear a crow flying overhead, and I'm like, "Is this really you? Like, is this real? Are you actually trying to make yourself known to me?" And this, I think, is when you were down visiting your parents in Myrtle Beach.
Mm-hmm.
When I went down to finally join Jess, she had found a metaphysical shop. She's like, "Oh, you got to come see this. It's really cool." And the second we walk in, literally everything that was crow started catching my attention.
It turns out it was run by a Morrigan practitioner.
Yeah. And even funnier, right before I left, I had gone on Amazon. I was like, screw it, I'm going to do it. And I bought my first book on the Morrigan. And it was like working with the Dark Goddess.
Wasn't it the Stephanie
It
Woodfield
was
one?
the stuff, Stephanie Woodfield one. And when we get down there and I'm looking at this stuff, and Ash,
Ivy.
Ivy, sorry, Ivy was like, you seem to be looking at all this. What do you come into the back room with me?
So you, me, talk.
We gotta go. And she was a priestess of the Morrigan. She's like, she's trying to get a hold of me. Like this is a. I said, I thought so, but I wasn't 100% certain. I was still trying to figure it all out. Um, and she reassured me. She's like, it's okay if you tell her not yet. That's okay. But in the meantime, you should really look up and get this book by a good friend and mentor of mine, Stephanie Woodfield. They're like, actually, Amazon's delivering it tomorrow. So it's just a lot of synchronicities coming up. And for a good number of months, I kept pushing it off. Every time she would pop up, like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Because at this point, I'm still transitioning out of one religion and into others. And this was never supposed to have been a thing that's really a thing. So, you know, and then eventually you give in. No, I shouldn't say it like that because that makes it sound like it was involuntary. Eventually, my mind got made up, and I started acknowledging her and working with her and leaving offerings and building an altar. And it was probably about a year or so later when I devoted myself to it. And at that point, you really can't uh, try to claim any other religion.
Right.
Yeah, no, I'm Catholic. I'm just devoted to this Irish goddess. No,
She wouldn't put up with
she
that
would
anyway.
not have put up with that. And she kind of, she joined my life and would guide me and teach me with a very firm hand. And a lot of times it was like getting smacked upside the back of the head if I didn't get the lesson properly. But the lesson was always go over there. Okay, so I go over there, and then I got to figure out when the heck's next. And if I started like turning around, smack. I started going the other direction, a firm finger. I've had a lot of people over the years ask me what it's like working with her, and I'm always like, okay, so think of Harry Potter, Professor McGonagall, extremely stern, and you're kind of terrified.
But every once in a while you get a biscuit.
But every now and then you get a biscuit. Now our relationship together has evolved, and it's no longer like that. There is a lot more direct communication. I think part of that journey was
Learning how to
learning
communicate.
how to communicate, but also being given exponentially bigger breadcrumbs to earn it, to show that you are truly dedicated, to show that you have this, you know. And throughout this time, I'm studying her lore. I'm finding communities. I'm reading books. I'm engaging in online discussions and conversations. I'm meditating with her, and it all grows and evolves. And last Samhain, during our personal Samhain ritual, I took the final step and took oaths of priesthood to her. So this is, like I said, the first one that came about is my forever. Now, as part of that, my practice within Irish paganism in general increased. I leave offerings to the Tuatha Danann. I meditate and journey to the Dagda. I'll call on the gods for assistance and workings that go along with their attributes.
We reached out to Manana MacLear.
Manana MacLear for help with journeying. Uh, Bridget, when my nephew's girlfriend was pregnant, to help look after the birth. Uh, if we're doing a working asking for health, we'll reach out to Ermesh or her brother Miach or um, the I'm blanking on a couple names now because this is just stuff that's coming up. But I started doing the offerings. An offering week. It's not nothing major, but it's just something to let them know who I am and that I'm there, so that if I just instantly go asking them for something, they have at least a little understanding of, oh, okay, well, this guy does give us
Yeah.
occasionally. So if he's offering something here specifically, cool, let's work together, kind of a deal. So I have fallen into the religion that I was supposed to find. And you'll note I call it Irish paganism. I won't say I'm an Irish pagan because I'm not Irish. Do I have ancestry there? Yes. Am I Irish? No. There's a big distinct difference. And that's one of the things that I've learned through the online communities. It's why I emphasize so strongly on talking to indigenous people of the area and understanding the culture and the history of it. One of the books that I haven't picked this one up in a while. It's an actual Irish history college textbook because I want to understand the history of it completely, both for my spiritual purposes and for just kind of knowing where my people came from.
Societal context is important in worship with gods of any land too.
Big time.
Uh,
Very much big time.
enter it like you're an anthropologist.
Hmm.
And I think it really helps you connect with those spirits a lot easier when you try to understand where a 880 Irish man would be
Yeah,
and utilizing those gods as such.
yeah, 100%. So I mean, that's pretty much me in the nutshell.
Okay.
That's where I came from. A lot of study and a lot of discernment.
So I came to uh for now here I am in the year of our Christian God 2025. Um sorry, I just like to be a smartass. Uh where my practice has evolved. And now I say specifically that I practice Morse paganism. Um, when we kind of were delving into daily work, I was really kind of struggling to kind of see any path that really made any sense to me. Um, Ancestrally, like I was looking at Eastern European and French. Yeah, and like the Slavic gods weren't quite there for me. Um,
I find them. I looked into them also. I find them very difficult to get in with.
they're very standoffish, and I think there's like a cultural reason for
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and like French would mean anything from Roman to Celtic. Like the Gallic region was very widespread, and nothing was really like really speaking to me. And so I just kind of sat back and let it go for a bit. I was like, when something feels right, it'll feel right. And then shit started happening. It was one of those things when you stop looking, shit happens. And sure enough, um, I started getting a lot of signs, but they were signs like weird pranks. Um, there was that time my mother was visiting and the snake came out from under the basement steps as I was trying to do laundry.
There was no snake.
There was a snake. It was this big.
It's the same story I tell her.
I mean, like it was just a garter snake. It was nothing. It was a little rat snake. It was not going to be venomous or anything like that because we don't have any venomous black snakes in Pennsylvania. Um, and we have an old house, so I like me growing up in the country was like, okay, no big deal. It's a rat snake, but I'm definitely not going down to do laundry.
Not a big deal. Screamed bloody murder. You.
It startled me, but I wasn't like afraid of
Both
this.
her and her mother were terrified. Wouldn't even open the basement door.
Two babies. I did not need a snake crawling around the upstairs.
There was no snake.
Anyway, ignore him. I did keep a club, and we actually still in the basement just in
We
case.
have a snake beating stick
Yeah, we do have a
for a
snake
snake that
beating.
never existed.
Shut up. Um. So anyway, or oh, it seems laundry oriented too. I guess he really doesn't like folding. Um. Or it would be like I would be folding clothes after like the kids were in bed. And I'd fold the clothes and I'd go to take them upstairs to put away, and I'd be literally I just folded the clothes, taken my stack, walked up 2 flights of stairs, set them on my bed, and start putting them in the drawer. And there'd be like a dead spider in between like a pair of underwear and a pair of pants. That was not there as I was folding clothes 20 minutes prior. Um, Little things like that kept happening. And I was like, this is all feeling very trickster God. Like, this is a chaos entity of some nature. And I was like, and the only one that came to mind at the time was Loki. And I was like, nah, can't be Loki. That like the Scandinavian makes no goddamn sense for me. Um, so I just again sat on it. Shit kept happening, and finally one night I went to bed and I got yanked into astral and set on fire. And then homeboy walked through the flames and was like, "Hear me now, bitch!" Like fucking Verizon commercial. Ooh, an hour in.
1 hour, we finally broke the seal. Hour and 5 minutes. Congratulations. Nicely done.
Right? Really hard. But yeah, and that at that point I really couldn't reason it away, and I was like, I guess this is what we're doing. So I started building an offering space for him. I had what I called the deity snack bar in the kitchen, which was the window right above the kitchen sink, and because I didn't want to have to hike up like 3 flights of stairs to bring food offerings to my room and then eventually leave them and get mice and ants and stuff in my room. I was like, we'll leave them in the kitchen. I'll have a little space dedicated. I have a little cup up there. I had little dishes. So I'd share meals with them and I'd just start talking to them. I remember one time, and it was 2020 because I'd just come back from Costco after braving the 6 foot distance, rain, and masking um, to get toilet paper. And I was at Costco and I ended up with a 5 pound bag of Nestle's chocolate chips because that's what happens when you go to Costco.
Yeah.
Um, I was like, fine, we'll make some chocolate chip cookies, and we're in the kitchen, and Pat was sitting there the whole time as we're having this conversation. And there's no reason for the kitchen lights to be flickering at this point. It was a clear day, and I'm making chocolate chip cookies with the girls. Everything's fine. I We get the cookies put out on the sheet tray. I'm getting ready to bake them with the idea in mind that it was like Loki's going to get like the first cookie off the tray as an offering. And I give the girls each a spoonful of cookie dough to go run back and sit down
Where's mine?
and the angry flickers from the kitchen light. I was like, I was going to give you the first cookie off the tray when they're done. And like the petulant flickering after that was very much like, I want cookie dough. And I'm like sitting there like, I'm going to get ants. And then it was like, that's your fucking problem.
He will still use the kitchen light,
On occasion,
blinking
yeah.
on occasion. It's not so much anymore now that Jess can hear him clear. He comes through to me. When I do our weekly offerings,
He's like,
I make sure that her gods get as well. Um, so I have a mild relationship with him. So I hear it a little more directly now also. But every now and then, if I'm not paying attention enough and he's trying to get my attention, the lights are flickering.
yeah.
Which, let me just say, so we're going to go into our gods much deeper in future episodes. And in fact, when it comes to Loki episode, we have two other Loki practitioners that Jess is very close with that we're inviting onto the air with us. Um, but I will say, the shared space of Loki and on Morrigan chaos opposed to extreme structure
Hmm.
has been very interesting.
And I think that's why when Loki first came through, like Athena came through right behind him, like literally walked behind him through the flames, like, you're gonna need help with this one. And we don't necessarily have a working relationship anymore. We still have an altar to her. Like, she still gets regular offerings and stuff, but she's just not part of my practice anymore. But I still want to thank her for the help that she gave
Yeah,
at the beginning.
yeah.
Um, so, uh, I think that kind of helped temper him a little. Like, it helped give that grounding energy I needed to be able to push back on some of the stuff he does and say no, because he's very much, and a lot of people who work with him will agree with this, he's very much about pushing boundaries in an effort to get you to set them.
And now, see, this is an interesting concept because now this is kind of the tie-in of both SPG and lore,
Yeah,
because the aspect of him pushing boundaries is all over the mythology, but the doing it to
to get a
get you
reaction,
to
to get
set
a
boundaries
result.
and get a result, that's where SPG comes in, which is really interesting. I see a lot more SPG in the Loki community than I do
I think it's
the
because he's so
Morrigan.
noisy.
That could be.
He's and if you he's one who's very, I think, open to, like, if you want to come to him, he's going to give you a shot.
Yeah. Well, I think, and then with the Morrigan, the places where I see SPG, I really don't think that she cares as much about the stances that people think she takes. I think they miss the broader story, the broader uh, lesson of sovereignty,
Hmm.
not so much the social justice warrior aspect, the defend yourself, stand your ground aspect. So, it's kind of like, I don't really know about that one. But with you guys, it seems like there's a lot of really good SPG out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they're very talkative about it. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now, and I, you know, added specifically another deity to the mix. Just last Beeltena, we uh, I
Which is more commonly recognized as Beltane. Bealtaine would be the more traditional and old Irish pronunciation.
and it's not necessarily a Norse holiday, but because of the shop and the people we practice with, we sometimes do a small gathering or ritual for it. So at that one this past year, I chopped off all my hair to the big distress of our um hairdresser friend and devoted it to Edu. So we're working on a little bit more of like the Volvic practices and things like that through her.
Which I think is also a great way because then it made it a holiday that
That's at least significant to me.
is
And
reaching for you.
it's my UPG.
So one thing that you'll notice from both of our stories is that when the gods started calling, we first heard it with we heard shit, we experienced some weird things, and we saw patterns. And that's kind of the basis of when you're getting called by. That's what you'll see. You know, uh, I hang out with Zeus every now. And I say hang out in the aspect of he pops in. He usually just bros out. Like it's not an. I don't even consider it somebody I work with or never really did. At most, if I need a little confidence boost, he'll slide in and be like, "You got it, dude," and he'll slide back out. But there were patterns of another god show, and we were able to figure out who it was through that. And we even asked. I even asked him. I was like, "I need this, or this. I need two of these three things to happen within X length of time for me to know it's you." And I got them. I got two of the three. Um, and that's going to be the important thing when gods are calling you and you're trying to figure out who it is, right? You need to discern and you need to make sure you know exactly. Just don't take it at face value, right? So, how do we do this? First and foremost, we research, we research, we research.
Hmm.
We look at the mythology and the lore.
Look at SPG, if you can find it. Look
Yep.
at what other people are experiencing and see if it matches with yours.
Yep.
Because that might be, especially with them having to go into a modern context, that might be the way that they've learned how to communicate in a modern
Yep.
context.
Also research and study the region and the country that they're come from. A bunch of times you'll notice that there is an ancestral connection, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to have the ancestral connection. Jess didn't realize she had NA to the Scandinavian regions. When we did a ancestry.com thing, guess
I
what?
got like 5%. It's like,
It's still a connection, but you don't have to be. Our good friend Kendra, she's not Greek,
not at all.
but she is just like a giant receiver for the Greek gods. That's like we call her a god phone. That seems to be her natural talent,
Hmm.
and it's 100% Greek. So you don't have to have those times. But once you start doing the research and you're understanding it a little bit better, I always like to recommend that you test the God that's talking, or you test the entity that's talking to you. And a really great way of doing that is find an obscure piece of knowledge that really only they should know. And then as you talk to them about it, you change it slightly. So, like an example would be, Jess was saying yesterday, talking to Loki, be like, "Oh man, remember that time you had a
You had that six-legged
yeah,
horse.
that six-legged horse?
What was his name? You gave him to Odin, I think. And then if they don't correct you that it was eight legs,
If they just accept the misinformation."
then there's a chance that you're talking to somebody who's just trying to fuck with you or get your energy. I mean, that's why trickster spirits do it. They want that devotion, just like Pat does when he dies.
Stop bringing that up. But 100%, put me on your altar. Um, Now, this is also where I think we double back on the red flag of if it goes against the deity's personality.
Yeah. Like we had that one dude who came in who was like, I got my belly button pierced because Scotty thought it would be cute and funny. And I'm like,
So Scotty it's Norse mythology. She's of the Norse. She's an ice giant who is known to be exceptionally stoic.
yeah.
There is only one point in any of the stories that she even cracked a smile when people were specifically trying to get her to laugh. She didn't find anything funny. She was not a jokester. She did not enjoy anything other than sitting in the mountains and contemplating
Skiing.
skiing.
She's a goddess of skiing.
And even then, she wouldn't smile enough. So to then have this UPG of she wants me to get a snowflake belly button ring because it will be flipping hilarious.
First off, I don't know what's funny about getting a belly button ring. Like, okay.
Now, if it would have come through as she wants me to get a piercing of and have it be a snowflake,
That would be one
that'd
thing.
be one thing.
If she was like, I want that devotion of body mutilation, like
Under
tattoos and
that would make
piercings, cool. Like,
100% sense. But the fact that it was the element of because it would be hilarious for somebody who's known for stoicism, red flag people.
yeah.
If they don't correct you and say not six-legged horse, eight-legged horse, red flag. Proceed with caution. Okay, not saying that it's definitely not them, but you're gonna want to put a little bit more discernment into it to get to the bottom of things.
Don't be afraid to use divination tools either. Cards, pendulum, things like that can really help you narrow down when you're still working on your own um, gifts of spiritual communication.
Yep, yep.
Hi, Fred.
Now we're gonna look at what next steps to take if you decide to work with them or if you decide not to work with them. So the first one is begin communications with the god and start what is understood as right relationship. Now, I'm stealing that term from the Irish pagan school because I think it's just an absolutely fantastic concept of dealing with your deities. And by right relations, it means knowing their lores, finding what they like, learning about the culture they came from. It's that everything you can to be as accommodating to your god or goddess as you can. Okay. From there, you continue learning the lore. If you don't know the lore, do you really know your God? And if you're going to be worshiping, you're going to really want to know your gods. Okay. And the next one is, look for communities and other people who work with or dedicated to or priests of the same deity that you're working with. Right. This will help you verify some of your experiences. It gives you a place to speak openly about them, and until you're exhausted about speaking about them. And it also gives you a place to lean on somebody when times are difficult. We've said it before, we'll say it again. This path in life is not an easy one.
No.
You're always practicing, you're always reading, you're always learning,
You're always doubting,
you're always
second guessing.
doubting. Imposter syndrome is huge in
hmm
the metaphysical community. And then you add in the aspect, like we said in episode 2. This is becoming more acceptable, but it is still a fringe element of society. It's still not that acceptable. You'll still have to mask around certain people just to keep the peace.
On top of that, within the community, within people that you think are safe, You find Nazis, you find scammers, you find just in general toxic people that want to be like the next little cult leader. So you have to be very careful, especially in online spaces. I mean, I know a lot of Lokian ones eventually turn into shit shows because every so often one wants to rear their head to be like the next like big thing, and it's like, oh God, all right, I'm out of here. This thing is going to burn to the ground. And but at the same time, like I've met a couple of people that have remained close friends from those communities.
Yeah.
So we just kind of, talk amongst ourselves. So it doesn't hurt to go into these communities as long as, watch out for like dog whistles and white supremacy, especially within North spaces. If you see folk, VOLK or FOLK, that's a big red flag that they're potentially a Nazi space. So, um, with the online communities especially, you're just going to have to it's trial and error. You're going to join some and lose some. Don't feel too discouraged if that happens. Another one will pop up that will probably be a better fit for you.
Yeah. So what about when a deity calls to you, but you don't want to work with them?
You can say no.
You can say no,
I've done it.
as have I. I've told Odin no.
Yeah.
Actually, correction. I told him not yet. He popped up right around the time that the Morrigan did, and I started working with her. And it's like that's too bit too much.
Well, and I
Come
think
back later.
also at the time Loki was starting to poke around, and he was like, "Well, I got to go see who he's interested in over here."
Yeah, yeah.
And I have found, at least my UPG, is that Odin's a little nosy. He doesn't necessarily always want to work, but he wants to be involved.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Um, and then he eventually, when he did come back around, it was now too late. But
No, sorry, this is my
I've
path. Bye
chosen
bye.
my central path. Um, I highly recommend though, be respectful about it.
Yeah.
Again, you're the rock, they're the person. Be respectful about it.
A simple no thank you is usually sufficient.
Yeah,
If they keep being insistent, chances are they're not who you think they are.
exactly.
That's
And
another
then,
red flag there
yeah,
for
then you want to deal with it in different ways.
then you can start being rude.
So, what about if the guy that called on me, I don't want to work with. The one I want to work with hasn't said squat. Can I approach that?
Yes.
How would I do that?
The same way you would approach a god that called you. Do the research, leave the offerings, open the door for them, and let them know you're interested. Maybe they don't think they, for what, and their answer may be no, sorry, we're not a fit. And
Yeah,
you're going to have to accept that because if you keep approaching them, just like you don't want the creepo at the bar constantly trying to buy you drinks and insisting that you just need to give them a chance.
or continually calling about your car's extended warranty.
Yeah, they don't want the same coming from you if they are not thinking that you're a fit. But it
So
doesn't hurt to give it a shot. The answer may be no, and you're just going to have to accept that.
do an introduction. Hey, my name is so and so. This is what this. May I call on you? May I work with you? This is why I would like to work with you. Start that
It's a
realm of
job interview.
communication. In all honesty, they they may not say yes right away. The first time I asked the Dagda to be a part of my druidic practice and to help me along that path when I was working with the OBOD, the response was, "Show me why I should." So I had to start leaving offerings. I had to start dedicating time. You know, don't be surprised if the answer is, why should I? Have a reason for it. Start giving them the offerings and the time. And when we say offerings, some of the times, your time is the offering they really want. It's not that top shelf whiskey. It's the I'm giving my time to do this.
Like most of our, I'll say, consumable offerings, like our alcohols, our drinks, our food, are things we just have.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure, we have like a bottle of mead and a bottle of grappa that we got specifically for offerings. Uh, but a lot of times it's like, oh, I just made this really nice dinner. Let me go put a plate up.
yep, yep.
And it doesn't have to be a full plate. Like it
I
could
make
just
I
be,
make mini versions.
yeah, just a bite of everything.
Yeah,
Or like a little like shot glass full of soup or something. If you made a nice soup and you want to put it up,
yeah.
get a shot glass out, fill it with soup, pop it on the,
Now, some people want to make full plates and full meals. That's perfectly fine too. It's whatever works for you.
however you're going to do it. As far as disposal in that case, personally with the beverages, I pour them outside when they're done. Uh, or in the sink. I mean, I know
Yep.
the ones that get left inside will get poured in the sink, but the ones that are left outside, I'll pour into the ground. But done respectfully. And food, I'll just put it in the trash, or if it's something that's compostable, I'll put it on the compost pile.
Yep.
Like a lot of people, think there needs to be a big ceremony, and there are some practices. I know
Some practices demand it.
our friend Arlene disposes of a lot of her offerings in the cemetery trash cans, because that's what her practice calls for. That's fair.
That's awesome.
If you don't have a specific call to do so, it's okay to not litter. Um, B, some people will consume it with their deity as well.
Mm.
Um,
To me, that's wild.
especially, hmm?
That's wild.
Well, I think it's especially important for people who are maybe like food insecure. If they want to
That's fair.
give an offering, they instead of leaving an offering, they invite them to the table with them, and eat with them.
Yeah.
And I think that's completely
That
fair.
that I understand. It just I you hear people like, oh yeah, after it sat there for an hour or two, I just went over and ate it because let's not have I want a piece of candy.
Yeah, and like I'll leave offerings for the spirits at the shop whenever we have like a potluck or one of our gatherings that has food and beverage. Like I always leave a plate, then I'll take it. We have a trash can at the crossroads right outside the shop. So when the party's over or the next morning, if I forgot to do it before I left the night before, I'll take that offering plate. I always put it on a paper plate. Um, I'll take that offering plate straight to that trash can with the drink and I'll pour it all in. And then the spirits at the crossroads are also getting fed.
Yeah.
Uh,
What I do think is crazy is those who share and consume the offerings to their gods. I have heard a lot of first person accounts of it being completely flavorless.
yeah,
It wasn't when they made a plate for themselves, but when they ate or drank what was left for the gods, zero flavor.
they've taken the flavor out,
Oh,
which is so fun.
that's so cool. Um, the only thing I really do consideration wise is especially for the outside tea and coffee offerings, the weekly ones I put out, or food if I put food with it on special occasions. I always tell the land spirits, I'm dumping this out
Yeah,
because
I give an
there's
acknowledgement like, hey, I'm gonna go clean these cups or I gotta go clean these dishes, so I'm gonna
yeah
pour these out now. You'll get your next offering. Like,
there's there's folklore of people taking drink or offering and throwing it over the hedge, and it's hitting one of the members of the she, and then bringing down the wrath of the Fae on that one.
yeah,
So we try to not do that.
I usually try to pour it into my like herb garden or something
Yeah,
because like the coffee and the tea is honestly like really not bad for plants.
yeah. And then as far as the food goes, if I'm leaving a food offering outside, 9 times out of 10,
A raccoon has
a
gotten to it
raccoon or
before
a
we bring it
squirrel has
in.
gotten into it
I
before I
just got to
bring it
go
in.
find the plate.
I like to pretend that it was taken to the other realms.
Yeah, but I've seen that fat fucking squirrel get up on that plate and just go
Newman.
to town. So that's another thing to mention when you are leaving offerings that are outside, make them animal friendly if you can.
Yep.
You don't want to leave things out that are going to make the wildlife sick. That kind of defeats the purpose.
Okay, so the next logical step to talk about resources. We keep telling people to do research. We keep telling you got to do this, you got to do that. So, what are some good resources? What are resources? What are good? What are red flags? What are green flags? The red flags. I'm just going to cover this very quickly because we've been talking about them throughout. First is the reliance on UPG.
Hmm.
If a research material is teaching you about a deity and using like 90% UPG, that's a red flag. Because I mean, you don't know that actually happened to them. They could be making things up, right? That could be me after I've passed on, teaching somebody who doesn't know how to discern all of this lore to make me a god. So keep that in mind when you're going on in this. So if somebody is teaching and instructing and telling you about gods based majority on UPG and equating them to the other gods, to different ones, or making up full stories, that's a huge red flag. Next one, like Jess said, the schnotzy dog whistles. And we're going to use that. We're using that term because we don't want to get dinged. But unfortunately, especially with the Norse practice,
With the fact,
Mustache Man
yeah,
ruined a lot of things.
runes, like it's hard to find runic books that don't have them. It's hard to find mythology books that don't have them. So, um, yeah, it websites. I honestly steer clear of a lot of websites for that reason because if I can't see where you're referencing or citing your information, I'm not going to trust it because somewhere hidden deep inside there, there's probably something that's a giant red flag, and
Yeah,
I'm not going to waste my time and clicks on you.
yeah. The other thing is, and the last of the three main that we have written down here as red flags would be that over Christianization. Refer back to the one book that I've looked for years now and cannot find. I know we bought it.
Hmm.
I know I read it. I know where I put it. We can't find it. It's nowhere. And I'm glad it's nowhere. Because just looking at that first story, where the one Irish deity, essentially kills himself from overexertion because he felt the pains of
Of
the
Christ.
crucifixion of Jesus Christ. No, he didn't shut up when it's that overly Christianized.
Uh,
Red flag.
if people in Norse paganry try to a lot of times discount the works of the prose edda Snorri Sturluson because he wrote everything down after uh, the Christianization of the Nordic people. And yeah, take his mythology with a grain of salt. Why? Because he wasn't trying to write mythology book or a religious text. His goal was to save how to write skaldic poetry. He was saving an art form, not a religious text. So he was reteaching people how to write it by using literary forms that they were already familiar with because of listening to Norse mythology
Yeah,
stories. So it's not that it has no value. It's just, it's not the value you necessarily think it is.
yeah, yeah. So, what are green flags? The first one is if it comes highly endorsed by the people indigenous to the country and region that the gods are from. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
Especially for us in the United States. When we're looking at the old gods, we are looking at outside of our own country, unless we've been accepted into and being taught and initiated by the indigenous North American people
Yeah.
or South American people. Other than that, we're looking at this is all coming from outside, right? If they sit there and they tell you flat out, this author is not recommended by us because it doesn't encompass the truth and the lore and the proper stuff of the god, listen to that. If they recommend somebody who is in line with their culture and their everything, listen to that. Okay, don't speak over the the book that they say is not good. It might be a great book. It could be amazing writing and good storytelling, but it's not a good resource material.
Yeah.
And that's what they're saying. So, don't then argue back, well, I really enjoyed it because we don't talk over indigenous voices.
A lot of people like come up to me and they're like, "Oh, I really enjoyed Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology," and I'm like, "Cool, that's a novel."
Yeah.
Like American Gods, it's a novel. It's fun. It's a great piece of fiction
I think he hit the nail on the head
in some
in
areas,
some areas. Um,
and this is not going into all of his recent controversies. I'm just using
yeah,
this as an example of
yeah,
yes, fun reads. He's hit some nails on the head. He has some good points. It's fiction.
yeah.
It's not a reference material. It's a good novel.
Mr. World is not out there hunting down Wednesday.
Or is he?
Or is he? The next is a good resource material is going to tell you where it was translated from.
They're going to tell you what lore they used, what epic poems, what primary sources, what translations from which Christian monk, from which abbey, um, they're getting their information from.
Yep. This next one is kind of a combination green flag, red flag. So the information that you're getting from the resource material is older than the late 1800s to early 1900s.
It doesn't mean the book is
Doesn't
older, it
mean the
just
book is
means
older.
the sources are.
Yes, and I say that because during that time frame, we have a lot of people who started. That's when the rebirth of paganism and spirituality really started, and with kind of like the Catholic
The
monks in the 13th.
Blavatskys and the Golden Dawns. And
Yeah, the much like the monks in the 1300s who started writing the stories down for the first time and saved it. These people should be credited for helping to revitalize a lot of these religions. However, their books, and the things they wrote in it were quite often modern twists. They were including storytelling elements, and some went as far as creating whole new deities and lore to make it more interesting,
mhm.
but would then tie that and make it appear to be old mythology and things that happened 3,000 years ago. We'll get to that. Um, look at W.B. Yeats. He's
Yeah.
a prime example of this. He was very big into the new pagan movement. He wrote a lot of books about it. At the same time, he's the one that brought the idea and concept of reincarnation from India to Ireland.
hmm
If I'm remembering correctly from my research, that was never a thing until he brought it in. And I get why he did. And there's a lot of people who now attribute it as, yeah, it is a possibility. Um, but yeah, so that was something that was added to. So it grew the understanding of the religion. There were other authors who quite literally just made up entire new gods and goddesses. You see a lot of crossover of like, oh well, this is the Morrigan in Scotland, and she transitioned over, and this is what happened when she got there. There is no lore, no myth of her ever going to Scotland. She's not a Scottish goddess, but you saw it coming up in the literature of these times. So this is why we're cautious of it. So if the information, not necessarily the book, but the information is older than that time frame, that's a good research material. If it's not, if you can't find any documentation of it prior to the time frame of the writing of the book, that's a red flag. Not necessarily false information, but it's worth a second, third, and fourth look into it. Okay. Um,
Do they have a bibliography?
that's a big one.
Books with bibliographies are great, especially for the research scholar, because now not only do you see where they pull their sources, now you can go to those sources and
Yep.
dig a deeper rabbit hole. So,
Yep.
like, you find one author and you want to be getting books from people who are being an author as a reference material. You want them writing reference material, which means they're citing, there should be footnotes, there should be a bibliography.
Yep.
Um, they should read like textbooks. They should read like college textbooks when you really get down into the nitty gritty.
Yes. 100%. And that point and my last one kind of combines together for our final point of green flag. If the resource material is coming from somebody who's a scholar first and a writer or poet second, it's pretty good information.
Yeah.
If it's coming from somebody who's a poet and a writer first and a scholar second,
Their their priorities are different. It's all like they're more prioritized with writing something that's engaging, whereas the scholar is more important, or more engaged with writing something that is uh, factual.
yes. Now, understand that these green and red flags are being brought to you by two reconstructionists. That is going to
Skew how we choose to research and how we choose to read.
and what we deem as good information and not. Okay. When we get into the episode of our pagan stuff being stolen, and as far as like holidays and stuff go, we're gonna talk into just coughed under her breath, the star,
And some other things,
and some other things. So we'll deep dive into that of where it kind of shows that maybe not thinking our way is not that our way of thinking is not the only way to think.
Correct.
It's not the only way to do research. But we're going to tell you and teach you on what we know and what we have found is good.
Yeah, because I can't teach you on something I haven't practiced. Like, that's silly.
Yes.
And it's speaking over people who do practice that way. And, as we get further and further in these podcasts, I'm hoping to bring more of those people on to share their experiences and their knowledge.
Exactly. Because again, you're always learning, you're always growing, you're always figuring something new out.
Yeah.
So, what are some of our direct recommendations? The first two sites here are kind of ones that we've learned from other people and from other practices. For example, for the ATRs, Lilith Dorsey and Sen Moise, very good reference materials.
Yes.
The books are very, very, very good.
And they're both
highly
initiated.
recommended. And they are both initiated in multiple practices, if I think correctly. At least one of them.
At least one of them.
Yeah.
I don't believe, I think St. Louis was only one.
Okay. If you're looking into the Greek, there is one person who his writing is 100%.
The best primary source you can have is one that was written over 2,000 years ago,
Homer.
and that's Homer. Go Iliad and the Odyssey. And I'm not talking Epic the Musical, although I do love Epic the Musical. Read the actual Iliad and the Odyssey.
Yeah. It's going to be difficult to get through.
It's a lot. I've tried.
But that right there is probably the best resource material we can recommend to somebody when it comes to the Greeks.
Yeah.
As far as websites, Jess doesn't do a lot with websites. I tend to do a little bit more.
But good reference sites.
Good reference. A lot of these are because, well, the first two are mostly because of the Mythology Monday videos I do for the shop. It's that quick, down and dirty overview of a lot of things. And those two are Britannica.com and
I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's spelled THEOI.com.
Theoi or
Theoi. I don't know. They're very encyclopedic. So they're going to be referenced. They are researched. They are based in historical fact.
The next one, and this is ancienttexts.org. I use this a lot for Celtic translations or for Irish translations. If you're looking for really good Irish mythology that has been translated from Old Irish, it's a good place to go. When you go to the main website, you'll see at the bottom where it has broken down into the different things. Ignore the part that says Irish. You want to click on Celtic texts. It's going to take you to a better location with the stories all laid out a little bit nicer. But this website has a lot of different cultures and religions and stories on there. Mesopotamian, Hebrew, Persian, Greek, Roman. They encompass a lot. So it's a really great material. It does have bibliography that tells you where it comes from, tells you where translations come from. For the Irish, it even has the stories in the ancient Irish that you can read it in that language or you can read it in English. So it's a fantastic research site to go to. The other is one that I cannot.
It's his favorite thing.
It's one of my favorite things in the whole world, and that is the Irish Pagan School. So the Irish Pagan School was created by Laura O'Brien and John O'Sullivan.
And they have a podcast too, right?
There's a podcast for the Irish Pagan School podcast. You can find it on Spotify and I think pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Music too. Yeah. I've listened to it.
And those ones they know how to keep it short. At like 15, 20 minutes.
Unlike us at an hour 45 right now.
Yeah, this is hopefully this will be the last of the
super
2 hour long ones. But and it's not just them teaching these classes. They have compiled a wonderful collection of uh, mostly Irish people who are exceptionally knowledgeable. Laura, if I remember correctly, is in the process of getting uh, advanced degrees in Irish history. At one point, for about 10 years of her life, she was uh, she worked for the Tourism Bureau in Ireland, and very specifically was the one in charge of and giving tours into Uvnagat, the Cave of the Cats. This was the Morrigan's personal her personal gate to and from the other world and our world. And on top of that, Laura is a priestess of the Morrigan. What a better way! What a better, you can't find a better person to
A
learn from.
modern resource, fantastic.
Absolutely fantastic. And these are people, they are Reconstructionists also. Um, so, they have this very simple thing of the IrishPaganSchool.com. They have subcategories and sub organizations. They have the OM Academy. OM is the Irish, the old school writing style. Um, and then the Morrigan Academy, obviously, this is a group and a site dedicated to the Morrigan. Uh, I'm gonna use this area to cycle into our next, and that is books that we recommend. And we're gonna do that because the first one that I'll recommend as an author is gonna be Laura O'Brien and John O'Sullivan. I accidentally forgot a bunch of the books at home to bring in,
Yeah,
but
I left most of my Norse books at home.
uh, the one that I do have from Laura right now is Pagan Priesthood, talking about how to serve a community as a priest within pagan religions. She has a book on Morrigan coming out later this year. I'm so freaking excited about this. This is like
Yeah, didn't we already have it pre-ordered?
we have it pre-ordered. I'm more excited about this than I was when we found out Star Wars was coming back. Right. So this is nerding out big time. But um, a couple other ones. Let's see.
Morgan Daimler?
So I'm gonna get to her last, I think. So Stephanie Woodfield, I've mentioned her already. It was the first book I ordered. This isn't the one. The first one I ordered, I've loaned out to somebody. Can't
Yeah.
remember who. So if it's you and you're hearing this, I'm glad you're enjoying it. Bring it back when you're done. This is the secondary book for her. She's also a priestess to the Morrigan, but she is neo-pagan. So this is not recommended reading in a bunch of the Reconstructionist groups. The Irish Pagan School does not recommend this author because she does steer more towards UPG than she does to the old lore. So I still think it's good reference materials. I still think it's good to, especially as a beginner getting into. And you know what? Not everybody's going to be a Reconstruction. So if you are neo pagan and you are going along with uh, uh, the Morrigan, Stephanie Woodfield is a good place to go with it. Another one is going to be Courtney Weber. She has a lot of great lore referenced in here with some UPG spattered in. From episode 2, the Magic of the Celtic Otherworld, bringing that one back. This one is by Steve Blamiers. I honestly do not know if this is recommended reading
But you
through the
found
Irish
it
Pagan
useful,
School.
obviously.
I found it very useful, at least at the helping of the beginning of my practice. Uh, we're going to go to a giant stack of books here. So this is Morgan Daimler. As you can see, I'm a big fan of their writing. Morgan Daimler does a lot of the pagan portal books that you can find on Amazon for sub $20. Most of them are, you know, in about the 100 page. This stack right here is 4 books. Right, it's accessible, but they put so much more information into 100 pages than I found most authors can do. All right. Especially one of the main ones I'm going to recommend to people is her translation of the Catholic Torah. This is one of the major stories of Irish mythology, and she translates it in a way that they translate it in a way that most people haven't. There are parts of this book where others in the past have completely skipped sections, whether it's been because those authors couldn't come up with proper translation or it was deemed inappropriate and scandalous.
Hmm.
Uh, but Morgan there's at least two places in this book that they have included translations never published before. Morgan is American by birth, but unofficially has kind of been granted Irishhood because of everything they've done for the community. And I mean, including teaching themselves ancient Irish. So it's highly impressive. The books are extremely full of information. Very knowledgeable individual. I highly recommend. They haven't just written Irish books. There are books on other deities as well. I stick mostly to the Irish. The next one is it's called The Tane, and this is translation that I found is fantastic. It's by Thomas Kinsella. Has a bull in the front. This is another one. This is a nice long one. The names in some of these stories are very hard to get through, so just a little bit of a warning from that. Um, the last two that I'm going to recommend. Oh, and I had it. I had the authors and everything written down on. You know what? Start going through your books. I'm going to pull up the titles on the phone here because I want to make sure I get the author's name correctly.
That's fair.
So go ahead with yours, and I'll bug you in.
All right. So, as far as things that I've used, um, for my Norse mythology. One of the things I first got into, this is also a Pagan Portals book, Loki, Trickster, and Transformer by Dago Flopston. This is available. It was, I think, maybe $12 on Amazon. It was not expensive. Um, with the Pagan Portals, they are a great inexpensive resource. Um, at times they are can be a little bit UPG, but this is still referenced. There's still a bibliography. Um, it's still well written and concise. The next books I show are not going to be.
So I'm going to jump in with the first of the two books. So the first one is called Ireland's Immortals: A History of the Gods of Irish Myth, and this is by Mark Williams. The interesting thing about this book, and it's taken me a while to fully get through it, because he writes this book as a literary individual, as a historian, and as a Christian. So a lot of his takes on the gods and the mythology is one of almost like fables, which the myths that he talks in, the stories he gives, the stories themselves are fantastic. They're great translations. They're good to go with it. It builds in that added bonus of your own personal discernment. You know, when you have somebody that is pushing, well, this wasn't real, but it challenges your faith. So I think it's a nice combination of here is some direct and well translated lore combined with you getting to feel good about your faith and your belief in what it is you've chosen.
Okay. The next group of books I'm going to touch on um, are by an author named Ryan Smith, and we have The Way of Fire and Ice and Spinning Weird. Ryan Smith also has Facebook groups. The Way of Fire and Ice, I believe, is the name of it. Uh, this is an inclusive approach to modern Norse paganism. So I do highly recommend it, and they're really good at helping you identify like dog whistles and stuff. So I do recommend that group, at least for even just lurking to see what people are talking about, see information that is being put about. It's usually well monitored, and you're not going to run into too much trouble there.
So jump right in, back in. I didn't bring the one book for John O'Sullivan. Uh, John O'Sullivan, like I said, he's co-founder of the Irish Pagan School. He's Laura Bryan's partner in life. He is a priest for the Dagda, which is such a wonderful combination because priestess of the Morrigan, priest of the Dagda, the Morrigan and the Dagda are a couple. They are a married couple. So it's very interesting that these two found their deities and found each other the way they have. Um, he is a bard, so he does a lot of storytelling. Right now, the one book I'm reading of his at home is a modern interpretation of the myths and of the lores. So it is stuff that's written by him, but it is heavily influenced by. So if I didn't know his background, I would probably say this, I probably would have said like, maybe not the greatest reference, right? But because I know his background and know where he's coming from, it's one of those ones I can recommend him. I haven't really read anything else of his, so I don't know if he has anything that is more on the scholarly side, but the stories written are absolutely fantastic. They're really entertaining, really, really good. And then the final book that I'm going to recommend, and then I'll stop interrupting Jess, is the Labor Gabala Eric. This is a series of 5 books, although I can't find anywhere a printing of volume 2. But these are the 5 books that talk about and tell the tale of the invasions of Ireland, how Ireland became what they are, encompasses it throughout all the different standings, including the mythological cycle, the cycle of kings. So there's a lot of good to it. The translation that was recommended to me by a lot of different people is it's a black book with like maroon uh, spine and on the corners. It's a scholar select book, and it's translated by Robert Alexander Stewart McAllister. So if you get an opportunity, those are great books to read and go through also.
All right, my final collection of tomes that I would recommend are all written by the same author. She is a Norwegian scholar whose focus is on the anthropology of pre-Christian Scandinavia. So she enters into all of her discourse from the perspective of the cultural, linguistic, spiritual, like economic and political like climate of the time. So she very much tries to pull in, and that's why I feel like she is such a fantastic resource. Um, it's a heavy read. It takes a long time to get through. All of them are, but they are so well sourced and so well thought out and so well discoursed that like I recommend them to everyone. She also does have a YouTube channel, The Lady in the Labyrinth. Um, she has a Facebook page and an Instagram, and she also has a Patreon where she releases videos and audio files and things like and lectures and stuff like that on to further your studies. But the ones I want to touch on right now are the books that she has published. She sells by the pound. I'm going to tell you right now, this book cost, I think, $80 on Amazon. And it is, yeah, 800 pages long, give or take. So she sells, what, 10 cents a page? Um, the book I have here right now is The Great Knowledge. This is specifically about the stories of Seder and initiation within Norse mythology. Um, the first book I got of hers that uh, started delving into mythological origins was The Seed of Yggdrasil.
Which I think
Um,
seems bigger than this one.
no, it's actually 150 pages shorter,
Yeah,
and it was
same
about half the
price.
price. Um, then she has like three smaller books that are actually just publications of some of her lectures. So we have The Goddess Idun in Poetry and Myth, and that explores specifically a very lesser known goddess within uh, the pantheon. She's incredibly important, but only has like one myth. So, and how that myth has, overarches. One thing I love about her is a lot of times that she will reference one of the Eddas or one of the poems. She will actually do a side-by-side translation. And when she translates names or kennings or heiti, which are like short phrases to describe somebody. So, for example, like one-eyed traveler would be a heiti for Odin. Um, she doesn't just assume, like when she translates it to English, she just doesn't put Odin. She translates the heiti to one-eyed traveler. So, when you start seeing those things, you're starting to read it the way skaldic poetry was meant to be read. Um, but she has the goddess Idun in poetry and myth, the maiden in the mead, which is a very important mythological overarching concept in Norse mythology, and the trickster and the thunder god, which is specifically delving into the myths involving Loki and Thor and how they intersect and what the cultural significance would have been of those specific myths. So really, really great reads, really well researched. Hi, Fred. Um, and I cannot recommend these books more. I know they're a lot. Um, I mean, I go through these books with highlighters, pencils, sticky note tabs. Like, I fine tooth comb these books for a reason. And they have helped me establish a lot more of my understanding of my practice than pretty much anything else I've come across.
I really think every chapter in the Trickster and the Thunder God should just be entitled "Loki got him drunk again."
I mean, there is that.
There's some. Listen, if you haven't read any of the lore, especially the combination of Loki and Thor,
Unfortunately, Loki was bored and Thor got drunk.
you can start a lot of their stories that way. They're so entertaining. They're really, really fun. Really fun. Um, so after websites and books.
Well, I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
On top of that, there are quote unquote primary sources you can utilize. And those would be the poetic and the prose Eddas, EDDA. Just like Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey, these are what we have written of what was preserved as skaldic poetry, translated into, different languages, just like the Iliad and the Odyssey have been. So I highly, highly, highly recommend getting yourselves a copy and start fine tooth combing that. See if you can learn what kennings are like. Start intuiting like the kennings and the Haiti and what that might mean. One of the ones I discovered about Loki by reading The Trickster and the Thunder God. One of his kennings is translates to stirrer of stories. There is no story without Loki stirring the pot. So, okay,
Okay,
that's
sorry, I didn't mean to cut that one off. So we've mentioned websites, we've mentioned books. What about social media? Social media is
social media is social media. We all know it's a
yeah,
shit show here and there.
yeah, but there's also good information out there. There are good communities out there. It's not always the easiest to find. So there's really not many that we have that we can recommend, right? I could say the Irish Pagan School Facebook group and the Morgan's Cave, which is an offshoot of that, are decent ones. I really haven't found many others. However, the way you practice, there may be better ones. There are probably a lot more that dive into the neo-pagan uh, philosophy to it all that would fit you very well, but not me. So you would have to trial and error these kind of groups. But understand that there's going to be a lot of red flags. There's going to be a lot of the UPG getting thrown out there, and it's going to get toxic. Online, social media aspects always get toxic. I don't care how good the moderators are, it happens.
Yeah.
So be careful.
And just by the nature of having a large group of people talking, you have to have um very like universal rules. So like it's either too much or not enough sometimes in the entrance of either inclusivity or, safety or what have you. So there's only so much you can do and still maintain equity within the group. And I think that happens like a lot in a lot of pagan spaces where they're trying to be inclusive and they're trying to be equitable, and the wrong people will take advantage of that.
Yeah, yeah. So that's really kind of start closing us out. Apologies for all the coughing. It's way less from the last time we recorded. I'm finally starting to get over it. This one's been lingering a bit. Hopefully, by the next time we record, my voice is going to be back to normal. There's not going to be the little coughs here and there, and things will be great. Which brings me into next time. Next time we have a fun episode for you. It's our fifth, which every fifth episode we are jumping on the bandwagon and we're going to be doing an Am I the Asshole? We're going to search Reddit and subreddits and all those kind of good things where people air out their dirty laundry, trying to figure out if they were the asshole or not in the situation. But then we're going to put our own fun twist to it.
We're going to put a little metaphysical spin on what you can do in
What
these situations.
what spells and workings would I do if this was me in that situation? So we're gonna be diving some pretty good ones. We're not gonna be saying, okay, we're gonna hex this person. This is how we're doing. It's not gonna go there. It might get a little spicy, but we're not gonna be flat out here teaching hexes. Okay, not our thing. So publicly not our thing. Um, in the meantime, guys, if you have any questions about any topic that we have brought up or that we haven't brought up yet,
Or if you have a situation that is going on that you would like advice on with the Am I the Asshole?
viewer submitted, am I the asshole? That's even better.
Yeah. Let's give some spicy advice.
Spicy advice for how you should handle a situation. Anything of that such. Heck, even if it's recommendations of you look at each other too much and not enough direct eye contact with the camera, you drink too much water during. If you have suggestions or recommendations for us, please bring them up. This podcast is only going to continue. It's only going to grow, and it's going to grow best with your help and your involvement. So communicate with us. We're open for it.
And engagement helps us, let's be
Yeah,
honest.
there's that also. So you can do these things. You can post your questions, your comments, your concerns, your ideas. You can do that directly to wherever it is that you're listening or watching the podcast. Or you can email us at the.conclave.podcast at gmail.com. You can direct message us over Facebook or Instagram. Again, the.conclave.podcast, because I'm a simpleton. I like to keep things simple. So we try to put the same name to as many things as possible. That's the exact same handle that you're finding us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, Amazon, all the others. We follow that same name everywhere, so you're always able to easily find us. Okay, so reach out to us. Let us know. Do us the favor if you are enjoying these. Like, share, subscribe, follow, comment, rate,
Hit all them buttons.
hit all them buttons. Oh, that's the last page.
Yeah, I'm done.
We're all done.
Pat
We've
can
taken
finally
up.
land the plane.
I can land the plane.
Better than Delta.
That's fun. I mean, if I could do it upside down, I would. All right, guys. With that note, we're out of here. You have yourselves a fantastic day. Enjoy your week.
We'll see you
Good
again
luck
next
with
round.
good luck with any deity that comes a calling, and we'll see you next time. Until next time.